This is Ibrox.
Hello and welcome back to This is Ibrox, the preview show. We're recording just after the Al-Ashkard game, but we will be previewing the Celtic game, looking at what's been a pretty chaotic week for Rangers Football Club. But before we get into it, of course, we'll introduce my guest with me today. He goes by Hugh, but I'm going to call him Shug. That's how I started. That's how we'll finish. Shug, how are you doing? Are you all right?
I'm good, mate. Relieved to still be awake after that game, but happy to be here looking ahead for Sunday.
We're all feeling a bit sleepy, aren't we? But then it's only 8 o'clock, if anyone's wondering. Dave, last time we were on a show, we didn't win. I'm hoping that.
Yeah.
But how are you doing?
We break that duck. Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Bit like you. It was a tiring watch, but it is what it is.
Things you do for football. I was going to say, I really hope like this 45 minutes or so that we're recording today is a lot more exciting than the 90 minutes you may have watched a little bit earlier, but we will get into it as best we can. We'll pick apart the bones of such an action-packed match. But Andy, it's our first show together, mate. How are you doing? Are you all right?
Very well, thanks, yes. It's the same as yourselves, very tired after watching that 90 minutes. Couple of cups of coffee and ready to go now.
Quite funny. I was like trying to sitting sort of watching the game at the corner of my eye, because obviously had a bit of work at some point, and trying to write down questions for it, just Morelos chances, and that was it. That's as far as it went. So I'll come to you first, Shug. I think we've kind of all basically said what we think, but what did you make of the game, and in particular the Morelos chances, which were the standout moments, really?
Yeah, the game, you sat and you watched it and it was bored to tears, but Morelos had 3 absolute gift chances that if he'd taken them, well, looking and Rebo hit the post and the crossbar, and Arfield had a great chance to get blocked, and there's 6. It could have been 6, and it finished 0-0. So I don't think we're ever in any real danger. And I'm just hoping that there was some kind of message, just don't give your all because we need you for the weekend. And that's why we're a bit lacklustre. But yeah, I think Alfie was a wee bit wasteful, but hopefully he's saving himself for one of his fielded teams to score against.
That's what I keep telling myself, that they were told to be bad, they were told to be boring, and Morelos was told, don't take your chances tonight, wait till Sunday. Dave, obviously, we've kind of tried to discuss the game as best we can. It wasn't exhilarating. The best moment was probably the BBC cutting to 2 people in masks looking as awkward as hell. Aside from the men in masks, actually the men, one was a woman, one was a man. What did you make of the game? It was a struggle to get through, but there was certain moments we can discuss.
It was pretty hard going as a fan. I don't know. For me, we're talking about kind of holding back the energy, and there's a total amount of sense in that. But one thing that stood out to me was we made 1 substitution. So Hadji came off, and obviously Itten came on. I would hazard a guess if Morelos had taken 1 or more of those chances, we'd have probably seen some of the young lads come on. The sort of main confident thing for me, I guess, is McAllister saying we're expecting players back for Sunday, because, like your Rebo, your Morelos, you'd have probably wanted them off. Give a bit of game time to the youngsters and do that. The game itself, we've all said it, it's not a great performance. We're through. I think that's about all we can say at this point.
Yeah, I think it is the case, and we are through basically. Andy, the commentators were speaking about it, and they were saying obviously about the heat over in Al-Ashkard and how warm it was, and that might be a case of don't waste all your energy. I suppose they definitely didn't do that. Again, we'll probably be discussing it, but a lack of energy was definitely apparent. But can you blame that on the weather, Andy, or do you think similar to.
I don't think so. I don't think you can. I don't think you can blame that solely on the weather. Possibly a factor. It can't take all the blame. It struck me very much of a game, kind of pre-season European qualifying away tie against a lesser opposition. It struck me that the worrying thing about it was, after seeing the energy, the drive, the willingness to go forward on Sunday, and we all thought, to a man, I'm sure, that that's it back. This is the way we play. To go from that to what we just witnessed there this evening is quite worrying, in my opinion. Even more worrying when you think that when you've got to go to all these away grounds in Scotland where the teams are up for it. We didn't look up for it tonight. Teams that look up for it against us worry me. Between that and I wouldn't say it's blind panic. However, there's definitely more panic when the opposing team gets to the final third than there ever was last year. I'm quite sure we all agree with that. As soon as the team that's opposing us break from the halfway line, last year it was a matter of time before Goldson gets that ball. Doesn't feel like that anymore. It doesn't feel like that anymore, and it's worrying in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same camp as you, to be honest, Andy. Like, I tried my best to be Mr. Positive, but it's been, even the Ross County game was better, but there was even moments in that, wasn't there? Especially defensively, Andy, where you can be like, well, that's not the Rangers of last year, and it's very difficult to pinpoint. We've discussed energy and not starting on the front foot, but it feels like we're repeating it a little bit. There must be more to it than what we're saying, but it's hard to pinpoint what exactly it is that is not what we saw last year, isn't it, really?
Well, I think that it's definitely hard to pinpoint, because we'll all remember Stephen Gerrard when he was being interviewed at Ibrox on Trophy Day last year. He said bringing the success there and getting that success has given the whole team the hunger to get more success. When they play like that tonight, albeit we're through and it's fine, it's great. When they play like that tonight, the hunger doesn't look there. The hunger for success doesn't look there. It looks as if it's just a game they have to get out of the way, and that's not on, in my opinion.
I mean, it's not Rangers style, is it? Let's be honest.
No.
There's a standard that was set last season that we maybe fell below twice, maybe three times if you want to include the Hamilton away game off the top of my head when they equalised at the end. But over countless games, the only times we were really beaten were by, unfortunately, better sides. If we're looking at like Slavia, obviously a lot of that got clouded by other reasons. But
which is fine. To be beaten by technically better teams is absolutely fine. Not when the effort's not there, though.
Yeah,
and that was brilliant tonight.
I think one of the things,
saying, wasn't it? They were saying it was. They were mentioning the heat, and then he said, "But when I'm watching it, it looks like lack of effort." But Dave, you're gonna add to that there.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, one of the things that stood out last year was, everyone performed. Everyone was a solid 7 at least, if not higher. Whereas this season, there's an awful lot of folk that just seem off the boil. They're not quite there yet. And do you know what? If we were talking first, second round, that's okay. There's time for it to come, but you would hope by this stage that people would be up to the speed. Your Barisic, for example, he had a few good deliveries, but he just looks so far off of last season. Morelos has shown it in wee places, but again, just not that same constant kind of 7 that we had from everyone last year. There's too many folk now that are dropping down to 5s, 6s, and as a unit, that's hurting us, I think.
You can have, when you've got a really quality side, 1 or 2 players maximum not on their 7th, 8th game. I think we're getting a few too many that are maybe not 2s and 3s, but they're certainly, like you say, around the 5s, 6 if they're lucky on a bit too much of a regular basis. And I think we can probably all pick 5 or 6 players that, based on the season, we feel like that about, because football's, of course, a game of opinions. I'm sure some of them will differ, but I think apart from maybe, I think Aribo's done all right this season. I've quite enjoyed watching Aribo. I think he looks a bit better, but Ryan Kent was a subject of discussion on the last podcast we did. Scott Wright's obviously been very good, and he probably won us the tie over the 2 legs when you really think about it, with his introduction at half time, and obviously he was missing tonight for what we can assume was some sort of COVID related reason, assumptions, but you never really know. you touched on Barisic before, Sugar. I'll come to you with this one. Barisic doesn't look right. He really doesn't. And then the fact that Calvin Bassey actually looks really good, it looks like he's grown a little bit, would normally counteract that. But obviously, Calvin Bassey potentially could be missing on Sunday as well from what it seems. And we can only kind of, again, assume. But on Borna Barisic himself, he's an absolute weapon to have. He created the second most chances in the league last season from left back. That's how important he is. But he's just not at it. He was blown out of his backside after 30 minutes. Is it maybe time where we can not make excuses for him anymore? Because yeah, he didn't play for Croatia. Yeah, he didn't have the best of pre-seasons. Yes, he was injured, but he's going significantly backwards.
Yeah, I found it interesting last weekend. He wasn't even on the bench for the Ross County game. He wasn't even there, so I don't know what's going on. It seems to be the Borna when he first joined and he struggled and things. I don't know. The manager obviously know how much they know because he was Croatia's first choice left back, and then he took an injury at the end of last season and then in the Euros he featured against Scotland for the last 10-20 minutes or something, and that was it for the first choice left back. And then since he come back to us this season, he's just never really seemed to go up to the pace of it. So I don't know when the Croatia squad's been announced for their next set of fixtures, or whether he'll be left out and maybe try to regain his fitness or something. But there's definitely something not clicking. There's definitely something not right. But we can, as has been saying, I'd say that with half the team just now, there's just something not going right. There's something missing. So I don't know. Maybe Borna just needs a free kick, like the St Mirren one, that kick the whole thing off, and then he could go on that run again and be phenomenal for a long time. But there is definitely something, because like I say, he was blowing early, and that's not what we've come to expect.
No, and again, going back to what Andy said and what we agreed on, there's a standard that's been set. And the squad's stronger now. You can't really drop below it. It's just, again, I suppose it would counteract it, the fact that Bassey has really stepped up, but we don't know the situation for Sunday. We don't know who can play and who can't. We don't know who's got COVID, who doesn't, who potentially has COVID, who doesn't, and we have to kind of deal with that. It's looking like Barisic, if we're completely honest. But I like to do a bit of a shit sandwich here. Started on the positive that we were through, yet it was boring. The middle bit has been a lot of poo-poo, shall we say. So the nice end of the shitty sandwich will be the fact that McCrory came through with a clean sheet. We've seen experienced goalkeepers such as Joe Hart make big fumbles in European stages about 15 minutes ago. So when it comes to being able to make those mistakes and those mistakes happening, there's a lot of pressure on him. McLaughlin's been playing a lot of games for Rangers in the league and in obviously cup competitions. McGregor is McGregor. He's played today. McCrory, there's a lot of expectation around him because he's been in the Scotland squad. He's played for Livingston, but still big pressure for him, Dave. But he actually looked quite good, didn't he? Looked like very steady, very assured.
Yep, I would agree with that. So I suppose he had one real kind of shot at him, if you will. Took a wee bounce for him, potential, mess it up, but no, he dealt with it well. I thought the first couple of minutes he maybe looked a bit iffy with the ball coming back to him from the defenders. Guess it's probably just settling in, but he seemed to get more comfortable with that as the game went on. The one thing that did stand out for him, and I hesitate to criticise McGregor because some of the saves he's made for us, but his long ball out isn't great. More often than not, it doesn't find people. Whereas I thought McCrory did quite a good job with his long balls. He seemed to be picking out people. We haven't got Patrick here. He's probably the man with the stats on that. But I thought it was a solid debut for him. To be honest, he did what he needed to do, and he did it reasonably well.
Andy, we're talking about McCrory. I know he got sent off anyway, but I'm quite taken back by the fact that was a second yellow. That was a red card, wasn't it? All day he left his foot out. He stood on his head pretty much.
It was a straight red. I know. Did it go down as a second yellow? It did, didn't it?
It went down
I
to the
went second yellow.
It was definitely a straight red. Yes, definitely a straight red. And I agree with Dave. Teething at the start of the game, but he seemed to grow into it. And I noticed the kicking. I noticed the kicking was actually all right. The kicking was actually absolutely fine. When it comes to Sunday, I know we'll probably go on to that. When it comes to Sunday, if he has to play in goals, as we don't know, we just don't know at this point. Having 50,000 of us in there will certainly be better than if there was an away allocation, in my opinion, if that's to be the case. But no, it was a definite straight red card tonight. Yes, 100%.
I think the guy's got away with it a little bit, but McCrory, you're right with his kick, and he pinged. I can't remember who he got it to. I want to say it was a Rebo, but he pinged the ball second half, and it was perfect. And the thing is, he's going to come under. If he has to play Sunday, there's going to be moments when he comes under pressure, and it's going to be frantic. It's going to be a bit mad. When your kicking's that good and you can pick people out, you can relieve so much pressure from a team. That's sometimes where young and experienced keepers can sometimes dawdle on the ball and go, oh, he certainly didn't look like that would be the case. He looked like he'd be able to clear it under pressure and make sure that he gets it to a blue shirt on Sunday. But again, we don't know. It appears McLaughlin is the one that might have COVID based on 2 + 2 = 5 and everything that goes in between it, but because you never really know. But if McCrory plays, I think the overriding feeling for all of us is, as we're speaking at the moment, watch him go and make a mistake now. Please God don't, but we feel quite comfortable and safe with that, don't we? In terms of one thing I want to touch on before we move, I know he's not been at the best of form recently, but Connor Goldson, that's his 80th consecutive appearance, which is bizarre in this world of football. I don't think some players last 80 games at clubs, let alone consecutively. He's been a bit rocky recently. He's had moments in his Rangers career which hasn't been brilliant, but say he was never to ever play for Rangers again after this game, and that was his 80 games that was up. Shug, how do you sum up Connor Goldson's career at Rangers?
Well, he'll always be remembered as part of the team that brought 55. He'll always be a standout, but in the long term, he's not yet a Rangers great. He'll be a good, solid defender. Pretty much maybe in the way Carlos Queiroz remembered, who played a ridiculous amount of games in a year as well. There'll be fond memories and things like that of him, but if people are picking their all-time 11s and things like that, I don't think he's under consideration for that. I think he's got to do another 80 consecutive games and a few more titles in the bag to move up that level, but that's, to be fair, it's not exactly easy competition he's up against to get being the Rangers' greatest 11, but yeah, no, it's been a good signing and value for money signing, and he's served as well.
Yeah. Dave, I seen you nodding. Are you in agreement with Shug on the Connor Goldson assessment?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as Shug said, he played his part. We're always going to be glad of that, but greatest respect, he isn't Richard Gough or Butcher or any of these, is he? He's done a job for us. I think it is probably quite impressive to hear that kind of run of games when you think that 4 years ago he was on an operating table for a heart issue. So it's good going of him to make it. He's done well, but yeah, he's probably got a way to go yet before you class him as a great.
Funny you mentioned Sugar that Carlos Quella, because he's got the same haircut.
Yeah, that must be the reason for getting all them appearances, because I'm sure Queiroz wasn't consecutive, but it was something ridiculous, like 60 odd in the one season.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm blocked by Carlos Quella on Twitter. I don't know why. Carlos, if you're listening, please unblock me. Don't know why.
They are.
I must have said something when I was drunk. There we go. Andy, are you in agreement with the assessment on Bolton, considering his 80 consecutive games?
Yes, definitely. It's a great feat for any team in any country. And he will be remembered for being a massive part, not just a massive part of 55, playing every minute of every game. But quite a way to go yet till he gets mentioned alongside the names that Dave and Hugh mentioned there. Quite a long way yet.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree with that. So onwards to Sunday. I love to pretend that we're all dead calm, cool and collected about it, but that kind of doesn't align with an Old Firm derby, does it? Especially not the first one with fans back. The big thing before we get into it is the COVID situation. Celtic had it last year, and to be fair, Andy, we said at that time, no excuses for them, for the players that were missing. I think, if memory serves me right, I think Edouard was missing and some of the other ones that didn't end up performing through the rest of the season anyway. Do you feel the same with Rangers, no matter who's missing, if it's the players that we think might be missing or the ones that are missing tonight, no excuses, strong enough squad?
Yes, I believe so. When you win the league by 25 points and then add a couple of players to that squad, to lose, don't get me wrong, it's never nice to lose 4 or 5, and potentially that's what we're looking at, 4 or 5 first-team players. You can't use it as an excuse. You can't. Just because Celtic have had a bit of a resurgence in the last 2 or 3 games, including Europe so far, you can't use that as an excuse, even if they did come and turn us over. It can't be an excuse. The squad should be strong enough to combat that. It's a shame, but there's teams went through it, and I'm quite quietly confident that we'll be okay. We'll take care of the game itself. I'm quietly confident that some of the names mentioned will be back. I've just got a sneaky suspicion there's only 1 or 2 with COVID, and all the rest of them being double jagged, hopefully, and returning a negative PCR test will be fit to be selected on Sunday. So, but no, I don't think so, Gerrard. No, not an excuse at all.
I'm not going to lie. I think Ryan Kent strikes me as an anti-vaxxer. I'm not going to lie. He just strikes me.
Him or his brother.
Sorry, Ryan, if you're a full-on massive vaccine fan. Dave, what are your thoughts on basically the same question I've just asked Andy? I mean, we said last year, no excuses. It's a strong enough Celtic squad, and you got beat. I personally think if no one comes back, looking at that Rangers squad tonight, we talked at the start of the season about how strong that squad was and it could cope with a crisis. We can't now change our opinions on that, can we?
Yeah, I think Andy's pretty much nailed it there. It's not an excuse. We didn't let them use it as an excuse last year, and I just don't think we can either. We talk about 2 top quality players for each position. You saw tonight, with the exception of maybe the goalkeeper, we still had people that you would deem as first team starters playing. We weren't calling up our youths. Okay, the bench maybe different matter, but we had people available. We've got Roof, I think, will be coming back from suspension. I think there was a rumour one of Kent and Wright was a knock rather than an actual COVID issue. So I think we should have enough there. Celtic, yeah, they're playing well just now, but that doesn't change the fact we have a decent team. We just need to up that energy a bit, I think, and play like we did last year. And if we can do that, we should have enough in the tank. The one thing that stands out is I think we're missing speed from the team. That stood out tonight to me a lot. So you're Kent and you're Wright, and not having either of them, we struggled to stretch them on the break. And I think that would be quite a good opportunity against Celtic as well. But yeah, we've still got creativity in there. We need to be able to go and take the game to them.
Really an interesting question for you, I suppose, that I would have known the answer to if it was last year. But if you were only to be able to choose one of Ryan Kent or Scott Wright to be fit, to be available on Sunday, who would you go with?
Just for me.
Yeah, that's really the difficult question. That
you'd be nice and said someone else. To be honest, I would go Kent.
Yeah.
Maybe haven't seen him quite as poor as he has been in recent weeks before, but we've seen a kind of lull in his form, and then it comes to one of these games, and it's just like he takes that step up. He seems to thrive on it. So at this stage, I would still have to say Kent.
I think I would as well, to be fair. I think if it wasn't an Old Firm, I'd be pretty comfortable with Scott Wright playing. But there's just big game players. Some people don't handle the Old Firm. I'm not saying Scott Wright won't, far from it, but I know Ryan Kent can. From the evidence that we've seen, and it would have to be a continuation of his poor form for him to put in a performance that makes you think maybe he can't handle it, and it's probably more likely down to form if he doesn't perform, if that makes sense, rather than the fact he can't handle an Old Firm. I think
he's shown us enough times that he can handle it.
Yeah, and he loves it. I mean, we've seen his celebrations when he scored. He loves it. So, like,
God, don't be pointing guns at people. Oof.
No,
cause trouble.
No. Shug, we said before, Celtic, if I'm honest with you, are probably the form side out of the two. If I'm completely honest, I know some people disagree with me on that, but they've had a couple of 6-0 wins. Obviously, the striker Kyogo is playing really, really well. He scored again tonight. And hey, things might change. At the time of recording, it's currently 2-1 in the 63rd minute for them. But we've seen the mistakes they've made tonight in defence, and it's not been... Celtic's defence haven't looked randomly brilliant overnight. They just look a little bit better attacking. Their defence still looks a little bit shaky. Starfelt looks like a different version of Shane Duffy, not quite as bad, but that's a difficult feat. Do you think maybe the Celtic is favourites tag, which they were labelled as, I think, by Richard Foster on TV, do you think that's maybe overplayed a little bit by the fact they beat a couple of teams with 10 men, 6-0?
Yeah, the fact that Richard Foster says it means I'm automatically going to disagree with it. I mean, you play a season for Rangers and you get a TV gig, apparently. But yeah, I'm just going to totally disagree with it, because everybody that's ever played an Old Firm comes out and says form just totally goes out the window. And at the end of the day, it's at Ibrox, it's on our patch. I think we're unbeaten in 7 against Celtic. Most of the players that will play on Sunday for us will have beaten Celtic.
Yeah.
Can the same be said for them? Most of our players will have played in front of the crowd. Can the same be said for them? It's just a totally different atmosphere and it's just a total different beast. I mean, all we need to go do is go back a few years ago when we beat them in the Cup semi-final under Mark Warburton with what must have been one of the worst Rangers sides to ever win an Old Firm game.
Is Rob Kiernan not playing in defence that day?
Yeah. So I'm never an over optimistic, I'm pessimistic sometimes, but there's no way I'd be staking anything or making anybody favourites for an Old Firm, but definitely wouldn't be making that claim that Celtic are favourites going into it, because, like you say, they won a couple of games against Dundee and somebody else 6-0.
St Mirren.
10 men for 80 minutes of the game or something, 70 minutes of the game. Yeah.
See, there was something Graham said there. So you're saying, have their defence got this much better? Have their defence got better at all? Or is it just they're attacking so much that we don't get a chance to see that fragility?
I mean, we've seen it tonight, haven't we? I mean, no matter what the result is, those 2 goals were horrific to concede. But if I'm a Rangers centre forward that knows I'm playing on Sunday, I've got a good chance of it. And I'm looking at their defence tonight of Ralston, Starfelt, Walsh and Taylor with Joe Hart in goal. And I've seen the mistakes that they've made. Hey, anything can happen on Old Firm Day and you can record this and think back. But as a professional footballer, if I'm looking at that defence, I'm not going to go into the game worried, if I'm honest with you. That's just not my mindset.
And that is their first choice defence at the minute. That's not ravaged with COVID or a cup game. That's who they've been playing.
Yeah.
So there's chances there for us. I'm not gonna say we're gonna hammer them 7-0 or anything, but there's definitely chances there.
I honestly think it could go either way. I think both defences are really fragile, and I think both forward lines look like they can still cause problems. I think, Rebo for me has been really good this season. I like Hadji. I think we all like Hadji. And I still think on an Old Firm Day, Morelos will turn up. I know he went a long time without goals, but there was many good games that he had even when he didn't score. I don't think Morelos he's a big game player. He loves it. Same as Kent.
I was going to say, I'm not actually so bothered if he scores, as long as he does some of the other stuff he does. You know, if he's ragdolling
Sent off though,
well, no, and maybe not the sending off, but you know, if he's leading Welsh about, plus that Starfelt lad, you know, that then leaves the room for, you know, your Kent or Wright or Roof or Aribo Hadji to sort of go in and cause the damage, doesn't it? So yeah, he can do a lot without scoring, I think.
I'm going to give Andy the difficult question, and difficult because you're a Rangers fan, but considering it's a preview show, we do have to look at the opposition team and where we think we could be damaged. And let's be honest, there's some weak spots in Rangers team at the moment. If you worry going into an Old Firm game anyway, but where do you think it could potentially damage us, Andy?
It's got to be through the middle. I've seen 35 minutes of them so far this season, and it was the last 35 minutes on Saturday. And the pace in which they move the ball is completely different to last season. Totally different to last season. They're more direct, they're pacier. Their young striker, Kyogo, who's come over, seems to be flinging himself about. Quite happy to be riding challenges and getting up and going on with it. If they're going to damage us between that and our defence looking ever so slightly shakier than last season, I think it will be there. I think it will be there if they're going to do it at all. Last year when they came, especially the last game, it was 4-1. They never offered anything, really. They never offered anything. I don't see that being the case on Sunday. They will offer something. And my personal opinion, from what I've seen of them, I don't think we could soak that for 90 minutes and break away. We have to go and do exactly the same with them, which is why I'm praying that we can go with, which I think Gerrard would go with the three in the middle of Kamara, Aribo and Davis, with Kent, Morelos and Hadji up top. And in that respect, they will be able to live with us. But to answer your question, I think the directness and the speed in which they break forward is different from last season and could potentially harm us.
I mean, there certainly is that, isn't there, Shug? There is an element of, we know they're looking at least at the start a little bit better than they were last season, and we're not looking quite as good. And I think that's why people think it's leveling out. But where we've got a few weak spots still, there's still plenty in that Celtic team where you would feel we could get at them, especially if we play the forward line Andy suggested, which is personally, if available, exactly what I would go with in the middle as well.
Yeah, I think one of your favourite ever eras enjoying Newcastle winning ridiculous scores 4-3 under Kevin Keegan. That seems to be the impression I've got that Celtic are going out with now, that they're just going to,
yeah, a little bit.
If you score 3, we're going to score 4 kind of thing. They know the defence is their weakest part and the best way to defend is to attack, sort of thing. So that's key for us, that we've got to try and find that solidity last season and hit them, because they'll, like you say, when you read out the back four, it's not going to put a fear into anybody at Ibrox. They're not going to worry about it. I've got a suspicion Roof might start with Morelos and Kent. I've got a feeling that might be the front three. I think he's dropped Hadji a few times in these games, so
yeah, I noticed
I think if everybody's available, I think he maybe go with Roof and go with Morelos and Kent.
What would you go with, Shug?
Them three, and then the midfield the same: Davis, Kamara, now Aribo.
So you go Roof over Hadji?
Yeah, I think that's. I think we've shown he's like a goal against Celtic, so I think he's got that. I don't want to say he's got more, but he's in front of goal, I think.
Yeah, I like them both. I'm not going to be upset if Roof starts. I just feel Hadji is just that little bit more superior quality. I don't know what it is. I mean, it wasn't that great tonight, so maybe a bit of egg on my face there. But Dave, one of the big things that's been discussed for months, years now, is fans being back in stadiums, because we got used to being able to hear everything from the players on the pitch, and watching an Old Firm with no fans I don't think it ever felt right, to be honest, no matter what the score was. But the fans are going to be back in. There will be Celtic fans there, but they'll be few and far between. There won't be known as Celtic fans. It's predominantly Rangers fans. I always think a crowd can make a difference in a positive and a negative, and I mean that across the entire world. But from my experience of old firms, Rangers fans, even when they go 1-0 down, will get behind them. And the same can be said for Celtic fans. You don't just lie down and go, oh, well, that's it. Whereas sometimes fans can do that in other games. But how massive is it going to be, the fact that it's 50-odd thousand Rangers fans at the weekend, as opposed to like so many Rangers fans and then like a big bulk of Celtic fans?
Yeah, I think it'll make a difference for the players. It's going to fire them up. Personally, I do think not the full stand, but I do quite like having some of them there, just so when we beat them, they know they've been beat, But I just, for me, having some away fans there adds to the atmosphere. I have to admit, I'm not so keen on giving them a whole stand, but that's a different argument, probably a pod of its own. For the players' vote, yeah, I think, it is going to make a difference. It is going to fire them up. And as you say, it's important that the fans kind of stick with them, even if they do concede. Easiest thing in the world to, get frustrated. But that can totally change the atmosphere, which in turn will change the kind of players' motivation, possibly.
You want to be getting... There's that thing where you put the first tackle in, isn't it? And everyone
lay down the marker.
You just want that all the time. You want that constant. Yeah. I'm hoping Davis is going to just put something up a height, nicely. In the first few minutes, kind of lay that marker that, we're here to win it. I wanted to come to what the fans will give as well, Andy. I think, obviously, I haven't spoke with you with it directly, but I spoke with Shug, I spoke with Dave in previous games. We lack so much energy in these games, like since the season started. There's just been very few games where we felt like we've been at it, we've been pressing high, we've been at it and just going for it. When it comes to the Old Firm, I don't think you've got a choice than to be energetic and throwing yourself into things, especially in the first 10 or 15 minutes. Is the fact that it's going to be an Old Firm going to benefit Rangers on Sunday, as opposed to maybe if it was a St Mirren and you're trying to be patient and push forward? Is the fact that you're going to have to be energetic going to play into Rangers' hands as opposed to Celtic's?
I think so. For the sheer fact that it's not been like that so far this season. When there's 50,000 of us shouting and bawling and screaming before a ball's kicked, they've got no option but to run faster, press harder, press higher. They've got carried away with it, in my opinion, and that's got to happen. It will benefit us, definitely. We can't allow... We can't sit back and let Celtic come at us. From what I've seen, albeit very little of them, we can't do that. They will get through us. They will break us down. We have to go at them. I don't think there's any option. There's no other way around it. And having 50,000 of us will help that. Although I've been a completely different view from normal. Normally an SC5 behind the dugout, but that's still being used for COVID. I think it must be press subs, maybe.
Subs and
subs.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Red zone, they call it, isn't it?
So I got the email the other day. I'm in the southwest corner where the away fans go. So first time I've been there, so we're a completely different view, looking from a different side of the stadium. But no, I think 50,000 of us willing them forward will definitely benefit us, and they've got to start faster and harder than they have.
It's amazing how much the view of the stadium can depend on what the end result is. Like if you get beaten, you're in a different part that you're not used to. It's the worst place you've ever been.
100%.
If you win, wasn't that bad actually. Wasn't too bad. I think obviously no one really likes doing this, especially when it comes to Old Firm, but I've started it now. I will finish it, as Mastermind Man would say. Score predictions, I'll go first. I normally go last, but I'll go first. I'll admit I'm slightly worried about it. I'm worried because of lower averages and the fact that they haven't done this for a while. I'm worried about our form. But that is being a fan, you get nervous. Fear is a funny thing. Fear as a fan, you worry about the worst case scenario. You don't worry about winning handsomely. That's probably just that speaking to me. I think there's a lot of reasons why Rangers could win this game and a couple of reasons why Rangers couldn't. But I'm going to go right down the middle and say 1-1. I feel like it'll be, maybe we'll get the equaliser as opposed to the other way around. So I'll say 1-1. I'll sit on the fence and get spokes in my arse. But Shug, unfortunately, you're second. Where you seeing the game on Sunday going, mate?
I think we're knowledge now on how to win these games is going to get us through. I think I'm going to go 3-2 Rangers.
Yes, Shug. Confident Shug. That's what you want. Yep. Balls to my terrible, boring sitting on the fence prediction. Go 3-2. Yeah, balls out. Why not? Dave, what's your thoughts?
Probably going to say 2-0.
And David,
I think
David, go back to the fence.
Yeah, afraid so.
I'll let you off because I went for more or less the same. Andy, fill us with confidence. What are you going for on Sunday?
I'll go 2-1 Rangers. 2-1 Rangers. That's my heart. My heart says 2-1 Rangers. My head's saying something different. I'll keep that to myself. But my heart says 2-1 Rangers.
Good. I much prefer your heart than your head.
Yep.
That's not a ball joke, Andy. I promise. All right. And on that note, this is Ibrox as always. The preview show is getting a few views and people commenting on it. Thanks so much for listening to it. Obviously, we do it all for free. Apart from me, I get paid a big wad of cash from the guys at the top, but don't tell the guys on with me because they'll want a share of it. But on a serious note, obviously, it's all for free. We do it because we enjoy doing it. You know, we might be wrong. Some of the things we might say on here may turn to be completely incorrect. We may be spot on. It's the wonder of doing a podcast before the match and a preview. But I've been Graham Fogg. Shug has been Shug. Dave has been Dave. And Andy has been Andy. This is Ibrox. And thank you very much for listening. And enjoy Sunday as best you can and get behind the boys.